Everyone, thank you so much for joining. We have a great in-person group today, as well as some online attendees as well. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you all for your participation in the committee meetings in April, leading into our meeting today. And thanks to those of you who are part of the caucus for attending yesterday's meeting as well. I think we had a really great session last night. We talked about the 55A program, and Xavier will talk more about it in his report out on behalf of the caucus, since he chaired the meeting for us last night, and it went really well. I did want to take the opportunity just to mention a couple of guests who are with us today, in case you're wondering, do we have new members at the table? We are working on getting some new members, and I think we're close in at least a couple. But we have guests today. One of our guests is seated at the end of the table. It is Stuart Flom, our council member's son, Cameron. Cameron has fairly recently moved up from Brooklyn, and he is living up in Saratoga County, just outside Saratoga. Perfect time to be up there. And so he's joining us as our guest this morning at the meeting. And we also have a couple of special guests who have come up from Queens. They are friends of Bin Fang. They are seated behind me at the table. We have Yulin Huang and her mother, Ji Ying, and also with them is an interpreter. So she will be assisting them today. Yulin is checking us out. We had a meeting, a video meeting with Yulin and her mother maybe 6 or so weeks ago, Ben, and we're trying to entice her to become a member, and you all know what the application and the vetting process is with the Center for Recruitment and Public Service, what we used to call the appointments office on that. But we were trying to entice her to start the process at least with Ben's help, and they decided, Yulin and her mom, that they wanted to check us out. So they're up. They came with Ben yesterday. Ben spoke at the Most Integrated Setting Coordinating Council meeting yesterday afternoon. He made some just fabulous remarks related to employment and the importance of employment and training and readiness for employment, and the role of cultural competence and the need for cultural competence as part of that to make it successful. And up there with him was our council member, hopefully in waiting, Yulin, whispering in his ear. She told me this morning, Ben, that she was telling you what to say, which I suspected when I watched it yesterday, but she confirmed it for me this morning. And Yulin is also a fabulous dancer, and her mom showed me a video this morning of a performance that Yulin did at a Mother's Day celebration in their community. So a very talented young person, and Ben says she's going to be a great leader. So we hope that we can be part of her growth process in that journey to leadership, and so we'll see about next steps regarding her possibly joining us as council members, but she was at caucus last night and with us for dinner, and will be here all day with us with her mother and her interpreter. So those are our guests for today, and I will turn it over to Dave at this point.
Thank you, Kristen, and good morning, everyone. Our meeting leader for today is Katrina Hazel. To my right, Katrina currently serves as chairperson of our CDD Individuals and Families Committee. She is a published author, having recently written a book titled Special Education to College, The Katrina Story, subtitled Breaking Those Glass Ceilings. We're fiercely proud of her. Please let me remind you that it is our practice to follow the one comment principle. This means that speakers today are allowed one comment and must wait for all other comments before speaking again. Of course, this fits with our council cultural value of respectful behavior. So it's at this time that it's my pleasure to turn our council meeting over to Katrina Hazel. Katrina.
Welcome to the June 13th, 2024 full council meeting. We will be recording the meeting and posting on our website and required by open meeting laws. Gina Bowman will now do roll call and introduction and confirmation for the quorum.
Thank you, Katrina, and good morning, everyone. I will go around the room first, and then we can introduce our friends who are on remotely. I'll start by just introducing myself. I'm Gina Bullman. I'm the Public Information Officer for the CDD. Welcome, and so happy to be here, and so happy to see everyone remotely and in person. I'll start over in the right corner, and we'll just go around the room, please.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Drew Webster. I am a Communications and Grants Coordinator with the CDD. Happy to see everybody this morning.
Good morning. My name is Julie Veneman. I'm the Policy Manager with Access VR.
Good morning. I'm Marissa Rourke with the Department of Education.
Good morning. I'm Colleen Scott. I'm the Advocacy Specialist at the New York State Office for the Aging.
Good morning. I'm Joanne Siegel, Co-Director of the Rose F. Kennedy Center UCID at Montefiore and Einstein.
Good morning. My name is Sean Foltz. I'm a self-advocate.
Good morning, Sue Swan. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Child Health at the New York State Department of Health.
Good morning. My name is Jesse Kendall. I'm here with the New York State CDD. Happy to be with everyone today.
Vincent McLaughlin, member of the council. Need no further introduction.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. Dan Cunningham. I'm a parent member of the council.
Good morning, everyone. Anna DeRosa. I'm a CDD staff member.
Kay Broughton, also a CDD staff member.
Good morning, everyone. For a second time, my name is Dave Duell, and I'm a council member, and I'm a parent.
Good morning again. I'm Kristen Proud. I'm the Executive Director of the Council.
Xavier.
Good morning, Krista Rock, General Counsel for CDD.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Goldman, and I'm the Federal Liaison at the CDD.
Good morning. My name's Naomi, and I'm a caucus member.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Deb Tiviage. I'm a council member, and I'm a parent as well.
Good morning, everyone. Jackie Hayes, the Diversity and Inclusion Program Specialist for the CDD.
Good morning. It's Ben Finn. I'm a parent member.
Good morning, everyone. Kimberly Berg, CDD staff.
Good morning, Marilee Boylan. I'm from the Strong Center for Developmental Disabilities, and I'm also a parent.
Good morning. I'm Alyssa Galea, and I'm here on behalf of Disability Rights New York.
Good morning. I'm Stuart Flaum, and I'm a council member and on the IFC committee, and a parent.
Hello, I'm Cameron Flom, and I'm a guest here today, Stuart Flom's son.
Thank you. I do want to mention we have additional CDD staff. We have Sarah Amplo, Maya Samuels, who are our graduate interns. Thank you, ladies. And our guests, as Kristen mentioned earlier. For our remote participants, I'll start with Josh Christiana.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Josh Christiana, the Director for Quality, Compliance, and Chapter Relations at the ARC New York, and I am the non-governmental agency representative to the CDD.
Thank you, Josh. Good morning. Josh Phelps.
Good morning. I'm Josh Phelps. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at AIM Services in Saratoga and a council member.
Thanks, Josh, for joining us. Peter Cole.
Hey, I'm Peter Cole. I'm a council member on the Community and Systems Change Committee and a parent.
Thank you, Peter. And we have another CDD staff member joining us remotely, Kira.
Yes, good morning. I'm Kira Czapasky, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. And I believe that's all the CDD council members and staff we have attending remotely. Thank you, and I will pass it back to Katrina.
So now we will go over the agenda for today. Gina Bowman will discuss the Zoom platform. 10 o'clock to 10:15, we will take a moment to remember Council Vice Chair Jen Thaw. 10:15 to 10:30, CDD staff will go over the clicker and online voting procedures. 10:30 to 10:45, we will address our voting motions. 10:45 to 11, we will take a short break. And 11 to 11:45, we will hear leadership reports. (11:45 to 12:30, we will then take a 45-minute break for lunch out in the courtyard. Remote members, remember to stay logged in and kindly return promptly at 12:30. 12:30 to 1:15, Kathy Stewart from the Office for New Americans will give a presentation on the Ramus June Intensive. 1:15 to 1:45, we will have open forum including Council Member Vincent McLaughlin to present a proclamation issued by the Ulster County Legislators in recognition of April as Autism Awareness Month and adjourn to the public meeting. 1:25 to 1:30, remote members will need to log into a separate Zoom link for internal, non-public, required by the ethic training, which should be run until 3 p.m. I would like to mention we have available to all members and staff attending in person the studio room located right outside to the right of the courtyard and throughout the day for anyone who needs to make a call, take care of other business or personal business, or just need a quiet moment. Gina will now go over some of the functions of Zoom and will discuss the voting procedures.
Thank you, Katrina. So for our remote members who are joining us through Zoom, we will have a separate voting application, so you will not be voting, raising your hand or voting with our through Zoom. But if you have any questions or comments, if you could use the raise hand function through Zoom, that would be helpful. We may not always see your actual face on our computer, so if you could use your raise hand function. You should be familiar with the mute and unmute button. Please keep your audio muted unless you are speaking. For council members, you are welcome to raise your hand to comment during the meeting. For anyone attending from the public, we have an open forum session at the end of the meeting for public comment. You can see any of the participants through the button on the bottom of the screen, as well as the chat button. You can put in any questions through the chat. I'm sorry, and now I will pass things back to Katrina.
Council Chair Dave Dewar will say a few words about Jen Thaw.
Sadly, our CDD colleague Jen Thaw passed away unexpectedly at home on April 24th. Jen was an extraordinary leader, a strong disability advocate, and a very kind soul. Yes, Jen was a leader. To the best of our knowledge, Jen was the first self-advocate in New York State history to lead a full council meeting, which she did this past February. She was poised, thoughtful, and passionate. When Kristen, Gina, and I called Jen to debrief her full council leadership experience, She was deeply grateful, even joyful, for having had the experience. She repeatedly thanked us then, as well as in follow-up conversations. In my opinion, Jen led the full council meeting like a seasoned professional with her predictable combinations of talent and humility. Jen was an outstanding leader, but also a good friend. I would call her about council matters, and we'd end up talking for 45 minutes about everything, including her 3 dogs and 4 cats, which usually ended up in the video, and we'll miss those. She was a joy to converse with. Every word that she spoke was carefully selected, seasoned, and spoken with clarity and grace. To say that we will miss Jen is an understatement, for no one can replace her. She left an indelible mark on our council and our state, and we will not forget her. At this time, Kristen has some thoughts to share about Jen.
Thanks very much, Dave, for those amazingly kind and accurate words in describing Jen. So in this moment, we wish to acknowledge the contributions of Jen. She was a council member, the loving partner to Christine for 30 years, which to me is an amazing thing. She was an advocate, of course, as well as a mentor. She was a sister, an aunt, a pet parent, as Dave said, and an animal lover. Jen was a person of great spirit, deep faith, strength, and courage. Excellent was something that came out of Jen's mouth a lot. She always tried to remain positive, even when things weren't really all that excellent, always finding a glimmer of good, even in darker or more challenging or stressful times. Being new in my role as the CDD Executive Director, I was in the early stages of my relationship with Jen. She was supportive and encouraging of me, for which I am deeply grateful. She was generous with her time and always abundant with her thoughts and insights. I was planning to see Jen in May when I went to Central New York for a family visit, and unfortunately, instead, I attended her funeral. But I want you all to know it was a beautiful service where Jen was clearly loved by her family, friends, those that she was involved with in her faith community, and also those she had helped as an advocate and mentor for individuals in Central New York who have disabilities. I will certainly miss Jen. I hope she's here with us in spirit. And I did want to call to your attention the screen. The CDD staff put together a new page on our website, which you can get to from the council member section of the website. And it is a memorial page. We have Jen and also Mark, another former CDD council member who passed away within the last couple of years, also very unexpectedly and also at a very young age. But I think the 3 photos that we chose, and you'll see them on the page if you go to the website, and we've captioned them, but really capture Jen so well. That was Jen with the smile that lit up a room. That was Jen with Shamika, obviously being very passionate about whatever she was talking with Shamika about. And then the middle photo is of Green Lakes State Park, which is not too far from where Jen lived, right outside of Syracuse. And I learned from her sister Stephanie at the funeral that that was often a place when Stephanie would come up with her children as they were growing up over the years, and they're now young adults, but they would come up from Virginia to visit Aunt Jen, and they would often spend time at that park. So I thought that picture was quite fitting, and Jen loved the outdoors, loved animals. So that is our new page, and I, at this time, would open it up to all of you to speak about Jen and how you remember. Of course, Vincent.
To say it's a loss is an understatement, okay? I've only been a member of this council since the fall. And Jen was my mentor that I had. And she had a heart of gold. I mean, you could tell it with the stuff she was involved in, stuff that she did. She cared about this council and the successes of it. I think what Chris had said, it would hit the nail on the head. I concur with every inch of it, because, you know, it was a state of shock, and it's going to be a jumping loss for me.
Thank you, Vincent. Colleen?
How did you know that I was going to say something? I just, she was like very calm, thoughtful, patient, and kind. I think you guys already said most of those words, but that's how I remember her. She was just very steady and very even keel, but at the same time passionate in a good way, and very, very kind. Huge loss.
Thank you, Colleen. Anyone else? Gina, anyone online? Okay, all right. Thank you, all of you, for sharing your thoughts. Yeah, it's a big loss.
At this time, I think it's appropriate that we have a moment of silence to remember and honor our beloved colleague. Let's have that moment of silence now. Thank you, and continue to remember our beloved friend as we participate today in this meeting and as we go. Katrina, please continue with the meeting.
Jackie Hayes will help us practice using our voting clickers.
Good morning, everyone. I'm actually going to pass it to Kim Berg for this section of the agenda, so thank you.
All right, I will go ahead. Sorry, there was just a little noise, and I wasn't sure if someone online was trying to speak, but I think we are good to go. So we are going to do, most of you guys have seen this unless you were unable to attend the most recent committee meetings. So we have some clicker technology that is going to help make voting a little bit easier and a little bit faster and more straightforward so that we don't have to go around the room person by person. So we're very excited to be bringing this technology to the full council. This is the first full council meeting where we're using the technology. We've just used the technology on test votes at the committee meetings, and then we did use it for the minutes vote at the executive committee meeting. So we are going to be doing 2 test questions today, and then we are going to be using the technology to do the minutes vote and then the other vote that we have on the agenda. So for folks in the room, I'm going to start with the actual folks in the room. You have the clicker in your hand. You should have gotten that when you checked in. So you guys, your job is really easy. Once it's time, I will tell you when the vote opens, and at that point, you are going to register your vote. So as I said, we have 2 test questions to start. So they're just kind of fun, kind of get to know you questions for those that were at the committee meetings. You also experienced those. And then once we do the official votes, again, similarly, I will say the vote is now open. You guys will register your vote and hit send. And then once the vote is closed, we'll see the results on the screen. For those who are joining us remotely, and I believe there are 3 folks joining us remotely, some of you might have already done this at the committee meetings, so you should be familiar with the process. But if not, we have the slides and we have the URL where you will go. So at this time, for our remote folks, I will have you go to my.cloudvote.com. So that's the URL that's on the screen there. And I don't know who's doing the chat box, but can you just type it in the chat too so that people, okay, awesome. I'm getting thumbs up. So people are already a step ahead of me. And then what we did this time is emailed the unique ID and the event code. So you all who are joining us remotely, you should have your unique ID and your and your event code in your email. You should have received that already. If you did not, you can reach out to Anna and she will get that information for you. So let's go to the next slide. So again, this is just for the folks joining us remotely. This is the screen that you will see when you go to my.cloudvote.com. You don't have to worry about the login at all. That's not relevant to you. So you're just going to be doing join session, and that's where you'll enter the event code. And I just want to check in with our remote folks. Are you guys seeing this and getting through the process?
Yep, I have it in my email, the code and all that.
Okay, perfect. And then what you guys will do is once you enter the event code, it will take you to another screen. So I'll actually have you go to the next slide. That will look like this. And at this point, you enter council member, you enter your name, and how you enter your name is going to be how it's displayed on our actual voting screen. So just enter your name however you would like it to be displayed publicly, and then you enter your unique ID as well so that it links up your vote with your name on the roster. And if our online folks could just give us either in the chat box or just a verbal like thumbs up that you're in. Once you log in, because the vote isn't open yet, you're just going to see a blank screen, but it should say something like town vote. Are you saying yes? Okay. So it seems like, so I see both the Joshes are on, and Peter Cole, did you get, not to call you out, but did you get in online? Yes. All right. Perfect. So
yeah, doing it now.
Yep. Perfect. Yep. You're all in. We see that you're online. So as you guys can see in the room here, and then, folks remotely, you can see the same screen that we're looking at. So you see everyone who is present at the meeting. And once people actually vote, the vote will be registered. You guys won't see how everyone voted until the end of the vote. So the color, the people that are blue, it just means that they're logged in and they're present. So Anna, is the vote open, or Kay, is the vote open? Okay, so at this time, so can we go back to the test question quick? All right, so our first test question for today is, are you full of energy this morning? So for folks in the room, your clicker has 3 buttons that are relevant to you: yes, no, and abstain. So the yes is green, the no is blue, and the abstain is yellow. For folks online, you just have those 3 choices, but they're not color-coded. So the vote is open at this time, so you guys can go ahead and cast your vote. For folks in the room using the clicker, you hit the button that you want, and then at the top there's a send button. It looks like the email send button. That means that you have sent your vote in. So please go ahead and send in your vote at this time. Does the OK mean it went through? Yes. Yep. And so so you're blue, University of Rochester is, let me turn that. So you can, for folks in the room, you can look at the screen. If your name is now showing blue, that means your vote has been registered. If it's not blue, that means that it hasn't yet come through. All right, so it looks like Everyone has registered their vote, so we can go ahead and close this test question and see how energetic people are this morning. All right, so there's a lot of energy. A few folks you maybe need a little bit more caffeine, but generally speaking, we have a lot of energy in the room, so that is great. All right, so we're going to do one more test question, and then we will go to using these for our official vote. So the next test question is breakfast your favorite meal of the day? All right, so the vote is being opened now. So go ahead and cast your vote now. The vote is now open. That's easy. Yep. All right, so we can go ahead and see how favored breakfast is. Okay, so not a lot of, we have I would say a third, rough estimates of breakfast support, but most not in favor of breakfast. Okay. Lesson, also true, lesson learned. Okay, great. So it seems like everything is going smoothly and that folks are figuring out the clickers and then figuring out the online platform, so we can go ahead and go to the next agenda item.
Now we will go over the approval for the February 15, 2024 meeting minutes. Minutes of our last meeting are on pages 7 to 9 of the meeting packet. Are there any changes or edits to be made to the February minutes?
I move to accept them.
Thank you. Anyone want a second?
Peter Flan.
Stewart on the second.
Thank you. Who will, Jackie Haynes will moderate voting.
All right, so we will go ahead and use the clickers and then the online clicker technology to vote on the minutes. So again, your options are yes, no, and then if you were not at the last council meeting, we would like you to abstain since you weren't present for the meeting. So please go ahead, the vote is open, so you can go ahead and register your vote now. All right, you can go ahead and close the vote. So the motion passes and the minutes are approved.
Will be read. Kristen will read and explain the motion.
Thanks very much, Katrina. So we, after the last full council meeting in February, did receive a request that future council meetings would begin with a recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I brought the request to the attention of our chair, Dave Dool, and after discussion, we felt, based on the bylaws, that it was appropriate to bring it to the council's executive committee, which Dave chairs. So we did have that on the agenda at the last executive committee meeting, which was held on May 23rd. There was some discussion about it, and the members of the executive committee felt that it was important to get the full council input on that request. So the topic is here before you on the agenda today, regarding starting all of our future full council meetings by saying the Pledge of Allegiance. We will open it up for discussion and then entertain a motion. And if there is a motion, then a second, and take it to a vote. So at this point, I will pause and open it for discussion. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand, and I'm happy to call on you. And we'll start with Councilmember Vincent McLaughlin.
I was the one who submitted the request, and I feel personally about it. My take on the whole thing is if there's members of the council who choose not to participate in it, I mean, as is their right, of course, and I respect that, then you don't participate in it. But I just feel that there's a lot of boards and commissions statewide, maybe not the executive agencies, but certainly the legislature and others, then I felt that we should do it. I don't see the harm in it. I don't see the problem with it. But it's up to the council, and I'll just leave it at that. And at this point, I'll make a motion to move this forward.
Thank you for your comments, Vincent. We have your motion. I do see at least one other light on, and that's Joanne. So we'll see if there's anyone else who wants to have comment before we move forward with the motion.
I'm not sure exactly why this question is being brought up. I think that maybe some people might be hesitant to agree to this. So I'm wondering, is it a requirement to be on the council, number one, and number two, if we could have more discussion, because I think it deserves more discussion.
It is not a requirement that this council or any other executive agencies, advisory boards, or bodies start their meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. As you know, Joanne, and I know you're on some others, there are many state agency, across the state enterprise, advisory boards, bodies, councils, et cetera, numbering in the hundreds, and it is not a requirement. Certainly, it is, in my own experience, a more common practice at the local level. I've often seen it, and I'm not going to speak for you, Vincent, but you and I have talked about this a few times, and there are many local boards, town, village boards, county legislatures, school boards even, where I've seen it, where they start the meeting that way. But it is not a requirement. You're correct, Joanne.
I understand where you're coming from, and I respect that. The only thing else I would offer is, I mean, you could certainly have the conversation, but the fact is that if someone doesn't want to participate, you don't have to participate. It's not saying it's not a mandatory requirement. And I feel strongly about it, and that's why I brought it forth, and I'm bringing it forth for a vote.
Thank you. Peter, I think you wanted to be heard on the motion?
Yeah, it seems to me that given the fact that this is a state agency, not a federal agency, and the fact that, this is not a requirement, thankfully. Anytime that you do this kind of thing in a large group, it creates, whether intended or not, in my view, some degree of, pressure or, yeah, I mean, I guess that's the correct word. that people feel compelled to want to participate or not. It's visible to everyone in the room, whether a person is participating or not participating. And in large groups, that creates a dynamic that, given the fact that this pledge is unnecessary, there's, to my mind, simply no point in injecting that into the procedures and creating an environment where people may or may not feel comfortable being seen to not be participating in a group. And to my mind, I think there's no valuable upside here for our council as individual people, whatever their feelings may be about this. That's, any person's right in their business, but to create a group dynamic around it seems just unnecessary and in my view, not a good idea.
Can I see?
Yes, Ben, and then Stuart.
Yeah, so for me, personally, I agree because as an immigrant, when I came country, I was reluctant to be an American citizen at that time. But when my children was born with disability, it's totally changed. I feel that there's probably no place in the world. You have this acceptance, you have the support, especially for the respect for the people with disability. Of course, you can argue this country is not perfect. We have lots to do. But this is totally changing my mind. I became very proud to be American. I'm very proud to pledge what I call allegiance to the country because I believe this is the best country in the world. I believe that's the best country for my child with disability. Okay, so I do respect all the country try to see. We know it's not perfect. That's why we're here. But that's my way. That's my way to show my appreciation to this country. So I second for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Stuart?
So Vince, it's I never would have thought of this motion until you brought it up, and after you had introduced it and the committee, executive committee discussed it. It made me think much deeper about what saying the pledge can mean for the council. I think it means something different for everyone at the table, but I think the idea that we're making a huge effort to be diverse, to include people from every I don't want to use the word country, but every background across the state, we would want to instill, certainly for our advocates, the belief that saying the allegiance is a value that they can cherish because there are so many gaps in how people with disabilities navigate the world. They're often left out. They're often not perceived as, look how hard it is to go out and get people to vote who may have challenges. So I think the idea is that it could be actually very progressive to say the allegiance because it would also incorporate our belief that all Americans from any walk of life can be proud to be here on the council.
Thank you, Stuart. Is there anyone else? Joanne?
Maybe I'm too old, but on a local level, at our council, we said the Pledge of Allegiance, and it was looked upon as those who wouldn't participate, that they were in somehow not true Americans, maybe communists. No, seriously, that has come across. So I am a little reluctant to indicate that by saying a Pledge of Allegiance publicly, that you're a true American. We have many true Americans who are not following equity and inclusion and say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I think, for me, putting in something that is not required like this is a problem, because there are some people that feel freedom of speech is very important, and by mandating a Pledge of Allegiance, you are limiting freedom of speech for some individuals. And you may be casting, I want to say, an aspersion toward that individual, a negativity toward that individual. So I would say we must clearly think about what this is saying and the implications. And so that's my opinion, and I wanted to express that and also, again, personally, what I've experienced. So you never know what people think outside of a room like this about what your positions are. And you cannot prevent gossip. You cannot prevent innuendos. And so I am greatly concerned about pushing forward this type of affirmation. I think everyone here recognizes the government and the importance of the government. I would be the first person to say that the United States government and its support, particularly right now at a federal level for people with disabilities, is very, very good as to what's going on. And so I would just really let people think strongly before they cast their vote as to what this may mean for people who feel that they will be left out because of something that is being done in a public situation. And that's a position I have.
Can I
Thank you.
close on?
We have a couple more, Vincent, who would like to be heard. We have Colleen Scott, and then if there's no one else who wishes to be heard for their...
Actually, I want to call the question.
Vincent, I'll let Dave address that, but I do think it's appropriate to have everyone be able to be heard here. We do have Colleen, who had her hand raised before you called the question, and also Peter, who had his remote hand raised. And since it appears that no one else wants to be heard, we do have time on the schedule. We're a little ahead to allow Peter to be heard again, if the chair so chooses, but I'll allow Dave as the chair to express his prerogative.
Vincent, I think we should go through with the vote and vote on this. I think it's the best way to. That's why I said call the question. Oh, you called the question. I misunderstood you.
We do have a few.
Okay, but let's take comments from Colleen and Peter Cole, who are speaking a second time. Remember the principle, and they've waited. Colleen, please.
I didn't speak about this yet. Just for the record, I'm trying to follow the rules about the one comment. Believe it or not, I usually have strong feelings on everything, and I don't necessarily have personally strong feelings on this, but I think this is kind of like how you say your religion tells you one thing, but is that appropriate to impose on everybody else, right? It's the kind of the same thing for me, is like what I think might be very different than what somebody sitting across the table from me thinks about this, and I don't think we should put anybody in a position where they may feel uncomfortable participating or not participating, and I think that with the amount of division we've had in this country around things like the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance and the American anthem and other things, I just think it could lead to a lot of potential negativity that could be avoided.
Thank you, Colleen. I apologize. I was referring to Peter Cole when sorry, my syntax got kind of garbled there. Peter, please.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. No worries. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of reiterate what was already said a little bit, which is that, in the course of this discussion, we've already had the word politics mentioned. We've already had people talking about their feelings about the country. We've had, that to my mind is just no place in this environment. Those are fraught issues. Those are complicated and, very problematic issues these days. And one of the beautiful things about this council is, has always been, to me at least, a place where whatever anybody thinks or feels about any of those issues, you don't know about it. It's not a part of why we're here and what we're doing together here. And, again, anybody's private feelings, as Vincent said, of course, is fine. And I heard him loud and clear about it not being a required meant to participate, that you could just sort of not participate. But that's not really how these things work. When you are saying that it's important for us to publicly and visibly declare our personal feelings about things by saying the Pledge of Allegiance in full view of a room full of people, that's a statement. Whether you think it is or it isn't, it is. That's the way that social dynamics work. And that creates pressure for people that choose not to, as was brought up earlier. And it just strikes me as inappropriate to what this council does, what it stands for, and the fact that this has been an important and calm and completely apolitical environment in which to take care of the serious business of handling state issues surrounding people with developmental disabilities. And I just can't feel more strongly about this not being a good idea. With all due respect to Vincent's feelings, and I heard him loud and clear about not making it coercive, but public declarations in large groups are by definition coercive, whether they're intended to be or not. That's all I got to say.
Mr. Chairman, I call the question.
Are there any others who would like to speak? Okay, we have a motion from Vincent, correct?
I'm calling the question.
Okay. Ben?
What's that?
Are you making a motion?
Yeah, I was second for the motion.
You're second, okay.
Yes, thank
Very
you.
good. Are we going to vote? Okay, let's.
Yep, and so just to be clear, people are voting on whether the Pledge of Allegiance will be recited at the beginning of each meeting.
Yes.
So if you're voting yes, you're voting in support of the Pledge of Allegiance being recited. If you're voting no, you are voting against the Pledge of Allegiance being recited. And then if you're abstaining, you are not casting your vote in one way or another. So at this time, the vote is open. So everyone in the room, you can go ahead and use your clicker. You can hit send to cast your vote. Make sure that you hit the send button. And then for folks online, you guys have already handled it. So great work. Thanks.
For those of you participating remotely, we are having one council member in the room whose clicker seems to be having a technical difficulty at the moment. So we are working on the clicker, and she is also going to try to log on via her mobile device. So if you would just hang on for a moment while we work through this. Thank you.
All right, we are closing the vote now. All right. Do you want me to?
The motion does not pass.
I just had one final thought on this. I know we've already voted, but it occurred to me after I voted that I really don't know where my agency would land on that. And those of us that are representing state agencies, it's not something that we necessarily know where the agency would take a position on. So I just thought about that after I voted. I wanted to put that on the record.
Sure. There were 4 yeses, 12 noes, and 4 abstains. Okay. Now we will take a short break. You can stay logged in to the Zoom, join the bank, and promptly return. You can now return at 10:50 from your break.
We're going to connect first. We're going to schedule, we're going to talk about, and also we were learning all the programs you have, so we can find out.
How am I doing with the checking off thing?
Good.
About all the search, we're still connecting while there.
Okay.
We're ready to call the meeting back to order. Now we will begin the leadership reports. The first one will be caucus report from Xavier.
A staff member from Albany County came to the meeting to talk about 55A program. It helps people with disability get jobs in local government. Vincent talking about how 55A work in Ulster County. Vincent also shared in Ulster County a proclamation for autism awareness month.
We will do the chairperson's report from Dave. So,
Thank you, Katrina. Well, first, in order of priority, I'd like to commend the CDD staff on the SAPA award that they received, the Academy for Public Administration, for the work that they did on the documentary, The Path Forward, Remembering Willowbrook. This clear demonstration of transparency and passionate advocacy bespeaks our council's culture to our constituency, as well as our council friends in other states and territories. And we always have an impact on one another with our ideas. That was a wonderful idea. Well, for the second year, I was invited to serve on the planning team for the Office for Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Institute. During the Institute, I also presented an overview of our New York State member engagement plan. Finally, I also moderated a session with four advocates: Wesley Witherspoon, who's chair of the California State Council and a personal friend, Lillian DeJean of Louisiana, Tia Nellis of Chicago, and Cindy Bentley of the Deep South. Finally, along with our staff, I continue to mentor and encourage our self-advocate caucus members to participate in council leadership roles. In that regard, I'm grateful to Katrina Hazel for leading today's meeting, and I'm pleased to announce that Shamika Andrews plans to lead our October 2024 full council meeting. In that same meeting, I plan to announce the next CDD vice chairperson. Thank you for your attention. Kristen will now give the executive director's report.
Thank you very much, Dave. And I did listen in via Zoom to the panel that Dave referred to, that he moderated with the four individuals from other states who spoke about their advocacy experiences. And there's some really amazing people here in New York, and I'm also really gratified to see that there are some people with very strong voices around the country, including in some states that are not as progressive as we are in terms of promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion for everyone. So it was really encouraging to hear about the perseverance of individuals in other states as well, to really take the work of the councils throughout the country and promote and expand it. So I will sort of piggyback to start on Dave's mention of the SAPA award. SAPA is the State Academy for Public Administration. We are very fortunate to be joined here today by the SAPA president. That would be our own Dan Cunningham. I can assure you that Dan was not part of the committee that decided on the awards. I only learned after the fact that a couple of former colleagues and friends actually were on the committee, but they assured me that they were totally unbiased in evaluating the applications. I nominated the council team for the award for its work on Willowbrook and for producing the documentary. I think that the Willowbrook documentary has gotten tremendous traction, and I think has reminded a lot of people of what things were like really only a generation ago, not that long ago, right? And we've gotten, what, Gina, over 180,000 views. That's just on our main YouTube. And then our documentary is also available captioned and in other languages. But that's the main site, so 180,000 views. I thought it was important to nominate the team because it was a real team effort. It was a new undertaking for the staff, and certainly a tremendous amount of work for a small staff above and beyond the day-to-day workload. But I do think that it's an extraordinarily powerful documentary. I've been encouraging colleagues in other agencies, and particularly in provider agencies in the DD field, to use it as part of their training and retraining materials, because I think for a lot of DSPs, many of them were not born in the days where developmental centers were commonplace, and the direction or the strong encouragement and lack of options caused families to place in developmental centers. That was the experience with my own family. My parents, fortunately, in 1970, were resourceful enough and stubborn enough not to listen to the hospital officials when they were directed to sign over their parental rights, forget they ever had him. Hopefully they could have another child and move on. And so for me, the documentary is particularly powerful and important, but it's important, I think, for DSPs to value their work, and this is how I'm trying to sort of pitch its use. It's important for DSPs to value their work because they do give people every day dignity, opportunity, hope. They have within themselves, by the virtue of their duties and responsibilities, the chance to be able to help people to live very full, rich, inclusive lives. And that is a powerful role. And I'm not sure that a lot of DSPs view themselves that way and understand how deeply important and meaningful their work is. So hopefully our documentary can be continue to promote the work that I know OPWDD has been doing, and the outgoing commissioner feels extraordinarily passionate about improving and empowering the DSP workforce to enhance the lives of those they care for. So I will show you quickly the award. The award ceremony was on May 21st. It was presided over by Dan, and it was a terrific night to also connect with other public service professionals from other state agencies who also are doing extraordinary work in different ways, some of which also impacts individuals with an array of disabilities. So this is our beautiful plaque, and we will hang it in the office. And everyone on the team should be very proud of it, and we are grateful to the CDD council members for their support of the work that was done and all the time that went into preparing for the documentary. I'm going to pause and let Colleen.
Just before you move on, while you're still on that topic, I just really want to congratulate you guys on that effort. It was an amazing documentary. It was an amazing event that I attended when you hosted it. And as somebody who started as a direct care provider 30 years ago, Willowbrook was one of the training videos that I saw. It did make a huge impact on me. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I have a brother who has pretty significant disabilities, and my parents were luckily resourceful enough and in a different time to be able to make different decisions. But I don't think that I really understood the history until I saw the initial Willowbrook video. And now it seems so long ago to, like you said, younger people. And I think that this really gave some perspective and can teach people where we've been so that we never, ever go backwards and we only move forward. So I really congratulate the team on that.
Thank you, Colleen. Deb.
Piggyback on that. It is truly amazing, and I want to just comment on what you're saying about, like, this can't ever happen again. And so we can't forget, obviously, that we're always in danger of going back. And so these efforts and the history is crucial for the education to make sure, because we do have a crisis with DSPs. And when we have a crisis with DSPs, we can fall backwards. So I think it's perfect timing to remind everybody that we have to continue to advocate, because we can very quickly go back to where we were, regardless of what the structure is today. So thank you, and it's one of the reasons why I love being on this council, to be able to be part of the going forward advocacy.
Thank you for that, Deb. Ben?
Yeah, I'm also comment that, as a new immigrant here, we never thought something happened right under our nose and not far away. So when we show this one in Flushing for the Chinese community, I don't see any eyes dry because everybody's just crying. But this is a big moment, so people realize that if we're not watching closely, we're not advocating vigorously, this could be happened again in the next 10 years, 15 years. So this is really changing mind. So this movie actually began lots of change for the Chinese community. We can see more and more people asking for, hey, where I can join your advocacy academy? How we apply for that? Because people realize that everything can happen if we're not engaged, if we're not advocate vigorously, just like Debbie Jones said. If we don't watch it, it's going to the wrong way. So I'm very proud to be a council member, just like I said, because we are doing the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ben. All right. So a couple of big anniversaries are coming up soon. Many of you, I'm sure, are aware. The first is actually now going to be the 25th anniversary of the Olmsted decision. So we will be doing some social posting and some other things around the Olmsted decision anniversary and its importance in the field of disabilities in general, but DD as well. Just a moment on Olmsted and the state Olmsted plan. I think many, if not most of you are aware, the state does have a new Olmsted director, relatively new. Her name is Shelley Medore. She comes to us from the Midwest. She was a state legislator for a few years. She is also the parent of two individuals who have disabilities. And so she and a small team in the governor's office are the staff leads on putting together an Olmsted plan. There are a number of subcommittees that are going to be forming over the course of the summer. There are some existing subcommittees from the last Olmsted plan that will be reinvigorated and refreshed and will begin work as well. One of the subcommittees is around emergency planning and preparedness, and yours truly. I just can't get away from that topic. Since I was doing it at the Department of Health throughout the pandemic and subsequent in the endemic period of COVID, I have been asked to lead those efforts. So I do expect to get underway this summer, and we'll be reaching out to see who would like from our council to participate with me, and also pulling in people, hopefully from other state agencies and community groups around the state who focus on emergency preparedness and response. So hopefully much more to come on that as time goes on. The other big anniversary that we have coming up is the Americans with Disabilities Act anniversary. This will be the 34th anniversary of the ADA, signed into law in July 26, 1990. And certainly these are both very significant events in our country's history where federal laws changed, allowing a lot of the advocacy that we do today to really take root and begin in earnest. So a couple of occasions certainly to celebrate. Staying on the topic of the federal government for a moment, some not quite so great news regarding the federal budget situation. The president has put forth his budget proposals for the next federal fiscal year. It gets confusing, I know, because the federal fiscal year cycle, the state fiscal year cycle, county government's fiscal year cycle, and the city of New York's fiscal year cycle are all different. So a quick budgeting tutorial here on fiscal cycles. The federal government's budget starts on October 1, ends on September 30th. The state budget cycle starts on April 1, ends on March 31st. Most counties are on a calendar year fiscal year cycle, January 1 through December 31, but not the city of New York. The city of New York is on a July 1 cycle going through June. So, yeah. Nobody can ever get in sync, obviously, here on the budget cycles. But the president did put forth a budget proposal that Congress is contemplating, not in a sort of formal way right now, but their work moves through committee analysis and committee deliberations, et cetera, as they prepare for budget negotiations. But the president's budget, unfortunately, is flat. That would be, if it is accepted as is, that would be flat for all the state and territorial councils around the country, including us, which is a total of 56. Does not necessarily mean that New York's share would be flat, but if history is any indicator, this would be the fourth year in a row that it's flat, and our New York State Council share of the federal funding has been pretty flat the last 3 years. So we would anticipate something similar next year to what we received this year, which is between $4.1 and $4.2 million. That's all in, guys. That's everything that we do. That's how we keep the lights on in our little suite in downtown Albany. That's how we pay staff. That's how we go out to events and promote the work of the council and the work that you all are doing. It's how we fund our grants. So being flat, as you all know, in your professional and your personal lives, in the period of inflation that we have endured during the course of the pandemic and since the pandemic ended and we're now in this sort of endemic state of COVID, flat is not really flat because of inflation. So the president's budget, could it be worse? I'll sort of channel my inner Jen T, and I'll say, flat, could be worse, could be a cut. And unfortunately, on that topic, there are members in Congress, particularly in the House of Representatives, who are pushing, not directed at councils specifically, but who are pushing for between 10 and 12% across the board cuts to all federal programs other than defense or military spending programs. So a 10 to 12% cut, if it were to happen after 3 years of flat funding from the federal government, would be particularly difficult. I think it's premature to say that it will happen. I'm not panicked, and I don't want any of you to panic. I just put that out there for informational purposes because that's what is being discussed in some parts of Congress right now. There are many ways that if something like that or some smaller percentage were to happen, that it could be rolled out, right? If the agencies at the federal level are given some discretion in how they would make the cuts happen, they could take money out of a really big program where the impact might not be as significant as when you take dollars away from what are relatively small funding amounts, which is what all the councils around the country get. So I think it's premature to panic, but I did want to put it out there for your awareness that that there are some things being talked about at the federal level in terms of budgets that are not positive and that are not encouraging and supportive of the work that we do and that our colleagues on the councils around the country do. So I'll be spending a few days in DC in July. Jen and Kay from our team are going to go. Also, we're going to split up the week, which is the National Association of Councils on Developmental Disabilities, NACDD conference. It's our association. They represent us and help us and all the councils in DC. So hopefully that's about a little more than a month, 5 weeks from now. So there may be some news over that period of time. I personally, and this is not a political statement in any way, it's just a statement of facts about the timeline, and also in looking back to earlier in the current fiscal year, you all know, and I had kept you updated about all those continuing resolutions, right, that Congress was doing because nobody could agree on anything, so they would basically kick the can. And I mean, it could be worse. It could be no agreement even on a continuing resolution, which means no federal dollars can flow. That would even mean that federal government employees don't get paid, and that would be what you would hear in the news about a shutdown of federal government. So thankfully, that did not happen. But there were, I think, a total of 5 rounds, if I recall correctly, of continuing resolutions, which just basically continue the status quo until they can get to a bigger agreement. So the federal government was probably close to halfway into their federal fiscal year calendar before they got a budget agreement. Given the things that will be happening in early November that you all know about, I would not be surprised that it's hard for Congress and the presidential administration to come to an agreement. So I would not be at all surprised that we see a continuing resolution to start the federal fiscal year, depending on how long its duration is. another one maybe, until we get beyond that special day in November, and see what happens on that special day in November. So I will keep you all posted, again, not to create, panic or great, stress, but just for awareness. And as you can see, I monitor the federal budget situation very closely. Switching to a very positive topic, and one that you're going to hear more about later today, and one that is very important to us at the council, and that a couple of our team members, Jackie Hayes and Drew Webster, have spent a lot of time on, and that is the Ramirez June Initiative. We are going to be showing a video as part of the lead-in to our colleague from the Department of State's Office for New Americans, Cynthia Stewart's presentation right after lunch. So we'll, like we did last time in February, we started off the afternoon with the video, and then we had the housing navigation discussion. So we'll be showing this wonderful video about the Ramirez June Initiative, which was a 5-year initiative funded by the council. It's just wrapping up. It was done in partnership, as I said, with our colleagues at the state's Office for New Americans. And you'll see someone familiar in the video. Our friend and colleague Ben is featured prominently in the video, and does a really wonderful job about articulating how important the outreach is to New American communities throughout the state, so that they understand what is available in the way of services and supports for individuals with developmental disabilities, and also their family members. It's incredibly challenging at times to be a family member, and to juggle everything else that life brings, job, other family members who need attention, et cetera. And so the supports that are available for the individuals themselves with disabilities and also their family members, but to make sure that individuals who are immigrants, new Americans, know that those services are out there, begin to understand how to go about getting them, and also to not be afraid to come forward and ask for those services, right? Some of our new Americans come from countries in which there is great stigma still, or even worse, toward individuals who have disabilities of all sorts and their families. And so part of the work is to destigmatize, and also to increase awareness about what's available, how to get it, where to go to get it. So the video will highlight the work over the last 3 years of this initiative, and then Cynthia Stewart from the Office for New Americans, who's just been so dedicated and committed to the initiative, will be here to talk in more detail about the accomplishments, all the outreach that's been done, and to answer any questions that you all have about that. More good news. We at the council are going to be hosting an intern who has disabilities this summer. The intern is a young person who will be participating virtually. We're doing this through an organization called Tech Kids Unlimited, TKU. The engagement period for the internship is July 15th through August 16th. And the intern will be remote, based in the city, but will be interacting with us. Gina will be the supervisor and mentor for this young person. And the intern will be getting us organized and focused, so that we can start making videos, much like you saw us do in March for DD Awareness Month. We're planning to do a series of compilations of video segments featuring individuals with DD who are employed or who are seeking employment, and preparing that so that we can celebrate Disability Employment Awareness Month in October. So you'll be hearing outreach from us for the call for, if you would like to be part of a video and submit segments. I have an eye on a few of you. And also, if you're working with self-advocates in your professional and or personal capacities, if you've got people in mind to contribute segments to our videos, that would be terrific. So you'll hear more from Gina and team on that. And my last piece is just a quick update on our federal program performance report, the PPR that we have to submit at the end of every calendar year. We received approval and a little bit of positive feedback, actually, on our 2023 PPR, which is the one that we submitted at the end of December 2023. No negatives directed at us, and the positive feedback was some nice comments on our 5-year DEI, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategic Plan. So that was very nice to hear. And then a plug on behalf of Jen Goldman, our federal liaison. We will be beginning later this summer to really undertake our new state plan development for our next 5-year state plan. It's that time already for those of you who've been on the council for a little while. We are, as you heard from Jen, this spring going to transition the policy work group to be our state plan development work group, and we'll continue to welcome anyone who was not on the policy work group but who wants to join in its relabeled state plan development role to help us with the state plan. And so obviously at the October meeting, you'll be hearing a lot more on the beginnings of our state plan development for the next 5 years. So Katrina, it's all yours.
Thank you. I do have a comment for the documentary. I think for the documentary, we should try to reach those in other countries like the Caribbean where they don't have the knowledge and resources about disability. Because I had the opportunity to visit my parents' country a few times recently, and I've been able to educate them on disability awareness and different things. But I think if they're able to see how disability was back then in other countries and how they can try to make their country better, it'll be helpful. And it's also Caribbean American Awareness Month.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your efforts in your parents' home country, Katrina. I'm sure that means a lot to the people you're working with there and also to your parents. I'm sure they're very proud. And that is a great suggestion, so we will follow up with you on that. And we're going to rely on you to help us make the right contacts. But
Sure.
we're happy to share the documentary, absolutely.
So now we'll go on to the DEI update from Jackie.
Great. Thank you so much, Katrina. So just a couple of updates. As Kristen mentioned, we have a 5-year diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, or DEIA, 5-year strategic plan. And really our goals in that plan focus on diversifying our council, diversifying our staff, embedding DEIA in our state plan, and throughout the agency, doing grants focused on DEIA projects, and supporting the diversity of self-advocacy groups and advocacy efforts. So here are just some updates on activities really underway as part of our DEIA strategic plan. The first update is about one of the standing work groups we have, which is the CDD, Cultural Competency Work Group. And believe it or not, this is the 7th year we've had this standing work group in place. It meets 3 times a year in the fall, spring, and summer. And so we had our spring meeting on May 10th, and we had a really excellent presentation from Tech Kids Unlimited, and Beth Rosenberg came and shared about some of the employment, internship, and job training programs that Tech Kids Unlimited does for neurodiverse youth. And so it was great because some of our work group members are parents themselves and wanted to connect afterwards and see how their children can get involved in that program. There were some concerns raised by members around and questions around self-direction. So at the next work group meeting, we're working to line up a speaker on self-direction to come and present and share some of the updates that are underway, some guidance, and answer questions that work group members have. So that work group has really been a great way for us to get input on DEIA efforts within our agency, and also has served over the last 7 years as an excellent springboard to diversify our council membership as well. In terms of grants, you might have seen announcements go out from AHRC Nassau. They were competitively selected to implement the Community of Practice and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion grant, and they have basically an application that's open for people who want to participate. I will say that it's open and focused on providers of developmental disability services, but they are also really encouraging self-advocates, family members, anyone who wants to participate in regional teams to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in their area, and meet with like-minded people who want to drive that kind of change forward or learn more or get tools and resources. So anyone really is open to apply to this opportunity to become part of the community of practice. They're going to have information sessions, so if you're not sure, if you want to learn more about what the time commitment would look like, what this opportunity would entail, they have upcoming sessions on June 14th, tomorrow, and June 24th, both at 1 p.m., and you can apply to participate in those information sessions on that website where you can also submit applications. And if you go to the website that's posted up there, you'll see the links for how to register for the information sessions so you can receive the Zoom links to participate. And then you'll also see the application. But if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And I can put you in touch with AHRC Nassau, or hopefully can answer your question as well. So really excited about that. AHRC Nassau and their leadership have gotten awards for their DE&I work. And one of the neat things that they did with a small grant from us was also to support DE&I ambassadors, which are self-advocates who are passionate about diversity, equity, inclusion, and they help kind of mentor other self-advocacy groups and also can be speakers. So they've really done an excellent job in that area. The next grant I want to highlight is, as we know, it's Pride Month, so happy Pride, everybody. And we have a current grant with the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals, or NADSPS, and that grant is focused on providing trainings to direct support professionals and anyone in the field to better support individuals with developmental disabilities who identify as LGBTQIA+. So their next training, and it's open and free to the public, is scheduled for June 25th from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. And you can register on the NADSP website. They also have a really great website called Proud and Supported that has resources and toolkits. And if you want to learn more about what does LGBTQ mean, or other informational resources, they have that available on their website. And then finally, we presented in partnership with the Office for New Americans and the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities at the New York Alliance Conference in April. It was really excellent. The commissioner highlighted that presentation as part of OPWDD's partnerships to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. And you'll hear a lot, as Kristen said, about this grant project and the success of this 5-year grant. So that is it. Does anybody have any questions?
Jackie, is that the DEI partner is only for the agency from Nassau County, or is from all the place?
So yeah, the question was if it's just for Nassau County, that application, and no, the opportunity is statewide, so we strongly encourage organizations from across New York State. They're going to be, once they receive the applications, pulling those groups together in regional teams. So we really do want to encourage people from across the state to apply so that we have good representation in each region of the state. And right now they did say that they're looking for more applications in the Ithaca Southern Tier area. So if you know organizations who might be interested in that area, definitely promote it statewide, anyone who's interested. But any assistance in getting it to that area specifically too would be helpful.
Now Jen Gomez will provide updates on the state plan development.
Thanks, Katrina. I have only 2 additional updates to what Kristen has already shared. We will be posting an accessible version of our 2023 annual report on our website. That just really highlights some of the great work that our grantees and our staff did throughout the year. So that'll be up probably within the next week. I encourage you to take a look at it because it's work that you have all supported. If you're interested in seeing the full report, I'm happy to share it with you, but it is not light bedtime reading, so I encourage you to take a look at the website. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm very excited about this because it makes my job a lot easier. We've implemented a new online platform called Qualtrics. Some of you in the tech field have already heard of that. So in order to make our annual report, we require our grantees to submit quarterly reports on their progress, and then we compile all that information into what we report to the annual report. So Qualtrics is going to be the new way that grantees submit their quarterly reports. So it'll be all online, all digitally. They'll just upload their financial reports right in there. So it'll make things much easier for them. It's also mobile friendly. So then, that'll make things easier for us in turn when we do our reviews. It will really make things a lot more efficient and a lot more accurate, and also make it easier for us to report out on the great things that we've been doing. So I think that's it. Okay, thank you.
Now we will focus on the physical report, and Jesse Kendall will provide the update.
Thank you very much, Katrina. So everyone, I'd like to just do a couple extra things in my financial report this time around. I think it's good timing, particularly with us having some new guests. I want to review the report, but also do a little bit of a financial review just to revisit some definitions of some of the common terms that I use during our full council meetings and our executive committee meetings when I show these charts, just so it gives us a refresher for what we're looking at when we go over these reports. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to is just how the colors on these charts show the green and the purple. The green being for spent or liquidated is another term I'll use from time to time. That is synonymous with spent, liquidated, and obligated. Another way that I'll refer to funds that are obligated is these are funds that you folks have committed in past funding motions that you've approved for projects that we've done. As you look at the different bars, you'll see they are labeled as the different federal awards that we have that are active. So right now, we are still active for our federal fiscal year 22 grant award, our federal fiscal year 2023 in the middle, and then our federal fiscal year 2024. One of my favorite things that I really like with these charts is that you see just how those colors incrementally go from year to year, and that's a really good indicator. So 2022, we recently completely spent or liquidated those funds, which is good because that stayed well within our 3-year time period that we currently have for those funds being active. 2023, we're halfway through that 3-year period, and right now, we're knocking on the door of that being fully spent within the next 3 to 4 months. And then our federal fiscal year 24, it's still relatively somewhat new. That federal fiscal year just started this past October. So you'll see in the spent versus obligated, we have $1,009,359 in that year that's spent, as opposed to the $3,190,641 that's obligated or committed. So when I say that, I also want to circle down to that bottom right-hand bubble where I've noted some of the past meetings that we've had where there have been larger dollar amount funding motions that you folks have approved in past meetings. So I reference that quickly just to show that while in a meeting like today, we haven't had any funding motions that you folks voted on, we have these past funding motions that are approved. But if you'll remember, these past meetings where you had those funding motions, Most of those projects were multi-year contracts that we entered into. So it could be 3-year, it could be 4-year, 5-year projects. So while you may have voted on it in June of 2022, October 2022, or June of 2023, these projects are still ongoing. They could be ongoing for another year or two. So I really want to point that out, that while we are still relatively fresh and new in 2024, those committed funds are coming out of those past funding motions that you folks gave really good thought to and approved. I want to take a moment now just to kind of review some other definitions. You know, we've gone over obligated, liquidated. That federal fiscal award, where it has a 3-year life, there's also a performance period or a project period and a liquidation period. So when I say liquidation period, that's the time that you can spend, or your performance period, that's the time that you actually do the work on the project. So your standard 3 years, you have your first 2 years to do the work, and then that last year to spend down against any of those bills that maybe are still coming in from the work that was done. The past few years, we've had extensions approved where you could do that work in all 3 years. What I really like, and focusing on that center chart, that center bar of 2023, is we're coming close to spending that fully, completely within our first 2 years, which is great because, you know, I'd love for us to be in a position where we don't have to request that extension to do that work into that 3rd year. And we're well on track to do that, and I anticipate us not having to do that, request that extension. I'll be monitoring that over the next 2-3 months, and I fully anticipate us staying on track to do so. So that's just a quick understanding of how that 3-year grant period works. How do we get that funding within a grant award? It doesn't come to us all up front, right on day 1, day 2, in that first month. It comes in piecemeal. So we get what's called a notice of award, and that notice of award for that grant has a certain dollar amount that were issued at that time. So in our standard grant year, as Kristen had pointed out, it'll start on October 1st, it'll go through September 30th of that following year. We'll get our first award around maybe November on average, middle of November, early November. That's not going to be for the full award. That's only going to be, if anything, really starter money to kind of get us up and running with the day-to-day bills, the grant projects that we have ongoing. And then we might see the next award, you know, February, March. Over the course of that 12-month period, we'll get 4 on average, maybe 5 of those awards. So to point that out, that's why I always put in that 2024 bar, that's an estimate. And that really points to the fact that Kristen mentioned that we're flat, you know, and we anticipate being flat as far as these fundings. Which also speaks to the fact that, hey, we have these ongoing projects that are committing these current funds. I also want to just mention that it's a really good spot that we're in, that we're going to be spending on track within those first 2 years. Some of folks that have been on the council for some time remember, you know, a few years ago where, you know, COVID, we had to return a small balance of funds, and we never want to see that, you know. So the fact that we're in a position where we're going to spend within the first 2 years really speaks to that fact that we're distanced from a time period of COVID-19 where it really impacted day-to-day life and grant projects and activities. So I'm really a big fan of that. I'm really a big fan of how the chart speaks to that fact. I always look to, you know, make some minor tweaks to this chart to kind of present this information to you folks as comprehensive, you know, going over all the points as possible. So I'm always open to any kind of suggestions, or if anybody thinks, oh, you know what, you know, could it speak to this aspect of how the money works at the Council on Developmental Disabilities and what you folks are voting on. But I will just stop there because I know we're knocking on the door of lunch. I do want to open it up to any kind of comments or questions. We're not voting on it in this full council meeting. We will be voting on it next time. But I just want to see if anybody has any questions or comments.
I would just make one comment. I want to thank Jesse and the other staff who work with Jesse. Jesse is our lead on the fiscal side for the CDD. As you all know, the federal funds from the Administration for Community Living are our sole source of funds right now. I think it is important that you all heard Jesse describe how we get the dollars. That's our cash flow. It's like, sort of for us getting a paycheck into the council, right? That's our infusion of cash. So Jesse does a great job at being mindful not only of the overall amount for the entire year, but because it is our only source of funds, we don't have a way to sort of, sometimes in a large agency, monies are fungible to some degree. You use cash from one source, especially if there are state appropriations. Cash moves around as long as, there's appropriate appropriation language to allow for transferring of funds so that you can cover bills as needed. For us, we really have to be very mindful of what expenses are being incurred, when they're being incurred, and when they are going to be paid, and that includes reimbursements to our grantees for work that they're doing. So Jesse and the team are in very close contact with all our grantees on a very regular basis to understand what their spending patterns are, when they are submitting vouchers for reimbursement, et cetera. So I just hope that Jesse's presentation today gave you all a picture of sort of the day-to-day work that goes into making sure that we are not only overspending for the year, but also that we are making sure that in any given point in time in the federal fiscal year that we do have cash on hand to make sure that our grantees who are doing wonderful work, and we want them to spend the full amount of their grant award for the intended purposes that you all put forth in your funding motions, but to make sure that we can cover those reimbursements as they're asked for from our grantees.
Thank you, Kristen, for those additional comments. As I always say, I'm always available if anybody does have any questions that come to mind afterwards. Feel free to give me a phone call or shoot me an email. But thank you all again, and thank you very much, Katrina.
Now we will get ready for lunch.
If I could ask remote participants to join us back at 12:30. Thank you.
Recording stopped.